Factories in Africa, roads in Kazakhstan, oil refineries in Iran, and ports in Greece. Just a few of the Belt and Road projects that have been built in the last decade. Projects that have not only changed recipient countries, but also changed global trade.
The Silk Road Economic Belt Program is China's $5 trillion infrastructure spending spree that spans over 60 countries. Funds are used to build better roads, bridges, pipelines, ports, railways, and power plants to improve trade routes throughout the world. Europe was excited to be linked with this program, but this was mostly severed when trade sanctions were imposed on Russia in 2022 and most land routes closed. The United States then pressured its European vassals to slash sea trade with China to slow its economic growth that outperforms the United States. This has led to 3 years of economic decline in the European economic bloc, known as the EU. Profitable trade with Russia was mostly banned, causing energy prices to triple. Europeans are angry, so if victorious Russian troops arrive on Ukraine's western border, several EU nations may leave the dying EU and relink to the Silk Road and join prospering Asia with access to cheap Russian energy that will attract industry from other EU nations. Part 19 of the series featured Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who openly opposes EU mandates to ban all Russian trade and allow mass immigration. He is shown here with Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico, who became an ally of Orbán. Fico is shown in Part 20 of this series, saying that Russia was forced to intervene in Ukraine. Orbán and Fico refused to provide military aid to Ukraine and demand peace talks. Hungary and Slovakia vetoed EU efforts to ban all Russian energy imports. Tensions recently rose after Ukraine shut down a vital oil pipeline that carries Russian oil to these nations, and said it would close down natural gas pipelines by the end of this year. This is what EU leaders want, and Ukraine acted as it seeks to become an EU member. In retaliation, Orbán and Fico recently vetoed plans for more EU military aid to Ukraine. Major political parties in EU nations who support Orbán's ideas are winning elections. On June 30th, 2024, Orbán launched the Patriots for Europe, an alliance with Herbert Kickl, the leader of Austria's Freedom Party, and Andreas Babis, the former Prime Minister of Chechnya.
Nationalist parties from Austria, Hungary and the Czech Republic have formed a new far-right group in the European Parliament. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán launched the new Patriots for Europe party along with Austrian politician Herbert Kickl and Czech Andrej Babis. The announcement was made a day before Hungary takes over the European Union's rotating presidency for 6 months.
Az európai emberek 3 dolgot akarnak: békét, rendet és fejlődést. És amit a mostani brüsszeli elittől kapnak, az a háború, a migráció és a stagnálás.
Orbán said the 3 political parties had joined forces to become the strongest right-wing group in European politics. He said the group was like a booster rocket and that the sky was the limit.
Croatia's president, Zoran Milanovic, shown here with Orbán, has often stated that Croatia will remain neutral in the Ukraine conflict and support a peace settlement. Austria still imports 80% of its natural gas from Russia via pipelines in Ukraine and is furious with plans to ban all gas imports from Russia. It has not sought alternatives because it locked in a low-cost gas contract with Russia before this conflict began that doesn't end until 2040. This lessened the economic burden on Austrians as energy prices soared in Europe. A sudden cutoff of Russian gas would be devastating.
Das Problem ist ein ganz anderes. Das Problem liegt bei uns in Österreich. Das Problem ist, dass alle anderen Parteien, mit Ausnahme der Freiheitlichen Partei, ihm diese Bühne des Parlaments eines neutralen Staates dafür zur Verfügung stellen. Das ist das Problem, vor dem wir stehen. Und damit machen alle österreichischen Politiker, die das ermöglichen, das Gegenteil von dem, was Zelensky tut. Er vertritt die Interessen seines Landes, der Ukraine, und das mit ziemlicher Vehemenz, während alle anderen Parteien, die ihm diesen Auftritt in Österreich ermöglichen, die österreichischen Interessen verraten. In aller Feigheit oder in aller Dummheit, möchte ich dazu sagen.
These nations were once united into the powerful Austro-Hungarian Empire, until it was dissolved by victorious France and Britain in 1919. Political and cultural ties remain, so some nations might drop out of the dying EU and form their own economic bloc. Serbia never joined NATO nor the EU and remains friendly with Russia, so would join this union. A new Balkan economic bloc would prosper by allowing trade with Russia, China, Russia-controlled Ukraine, and could join forces to guard borders from mass illegal immigration. This would infuriate the Anglo-American Empire that recently conquered this region after it destroyed Yugoslavia. See the tale linked in the description. Their CIA MI6 goons are actively sabotaging Orban's effort to escape imperial rule. Slovakia's Fico survived an assassination attempt earlier this year after being shot by a disturbed lone gunman. If these nations leave the EU, rulers in Brussels may impose sanctions or ban all trade. This would backfire and cause even more economic calamity for remaining EU nations. They would lose markets, and their main energy pipelines from Turkey pass through Hungary and Serbia. If Croatia joins this bloc, EU nations to the south, Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece, would lose unrestricted road and rail access to Europe, along with trade to neighboring nations. They would likely join a prospering Balkans trade bloc. A resurgent Austro-Hungarian Empire was predicted last year by Alexei Arestovich. He was a Ukrainian military officer who became a government spokesman until he screwed up by telling the truth about an incident, so was dismissed. He became a popular blogger and YouTube star in Ukraine, where he upset its government, so fled abroad.
Политико, пишет его. Австро-Венгерская пророссийская империя возрождается.
Это правда.
Это правда.
Только центром наиболее проактивным будет Венгрия сейчас. Раньше была Австрия, сейчас Венгрия. Все, я тут немножко побыл в Австрии, могу сказать, что это очень сильно похоже на правду. Плюс есть уже немного конспирологии. Значит, я тебе скажу, ужас, за этим стоит Ватикан. Он заинтересован в том, чтобы крупнейшее католическое государство в Европе образовалось. Не получило это. Все, выключили этот самый, как его, конспирологию, снова нормально общаемся как нормальные люди. Но я тебе точно говорю, что политика Австрии и Венгрии согласована. Это видно прямо на земле. И она идет к формальному, понятно, что она не будет называться Австро-Венгерской империей, к формальному восстановлению, а она будет сильнейшим и мощнейшим союзником России. Так зачем?
The loss of Southeast Europe would be a huge setback for the Anglo-American Empire. Other nations may leave the EU to enjoy trade with Russia and China and avoid pressure to increase military spending to support Anglo-American military adventures in Africa and Asia. This is likely to happen if Russian troops reach Ukraine's western border to open the door to the east. As a result, the Anglo-American Empire may risk World War III and send NATO troops into western Ukraine to block its vassals from resurrecting the Austro-Hungarian Empire.